from northeast part of India, and over there, growing up, it was immensely the scenario with cancer was huge. It maybe it's because of the tobacco intake, the chewing tobacco was highly. It was more like a cultural thing, and whenever we heard of cancer, it was a death sentence. So this and there were many instances, personally. I had my best friend's mother, she died of breast cancer, and I was only 12-year old, but no one wanted to speak about it. So all of these things where it's more like a cumulative effect.
For students who are maybe not familiar, how would you explain what cancer immunology research actually involves? Could you take me to maybe not your day to day, but what a typically you would do in this kind of field?
Immunology is something where it's very detail oriented. So what happens is, in simple words, like when we have an infection, right? And any kind of infection, if you think of COVID or any other thing, our body reacts. We know that we are having an external source which is infecting us, and our immune system should react. But what happens with the cancer scenario is a silent growth. So the manifestation, the clinical symptoms show up when it's already become it's been quite some time, because our immune system doesn't respond, because it's our own body cells, and we also have immune checkpoints, which what happens is when the tumors are growing, the cancer cells, they hijack the immune checkpoint.
Hey everyone, welcome back to FutureMED Connect. Today I'm joined by Dr. Lopa. She's a cancer researcher who has worked at places like the Mayo Clinic, focusing on cancer immunology and new treatment approaches. Along with that, she's also the president of Breast Cancer Hub, where she works on spreading awareness and making a real impact in the community. I'm really excited for this conversation because we'll get to explore both the science behind cancer research and how it connects to real-world impact. So, Dr. Lopa, what first inspired you to pursue a career in cancer research, especially in immunology and therapeutics?
And first and foremost, Atharva, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm immensely proud of you, and I'm sure your podcast will be very impactful, and all the best
So
for
much.
everything.
Thank you so
So,
much.
regarding the cancer research scenario, right? So, my background, just would like to give a little bit of background. My father was a physician, late Dr. Chandrasekhar Das. He was a pediatrician, and my grandfather was also a physician. So, I grew up in a family where, it's all about health science and
Yeah.
healthcare system. Ecosystem was that kind. But I am from northeast part of India, and over there, growing up, it was immensely the scenario with cancer was huge. It maybe it's because of the tobacco intake, the chewing tobacco was highly. It was more like a cultural thing, and whenever we heard of cancer, it was a death sentence. So this. And there were many instances, personally. I had my best friend's mother, she died of breast cancer, and I was only 12-year old, but no one wanted to speak about it. So all of these things where it's more like a cumulative effect. But one instance that I always remember was it was like my father, and he always told me that you need to go deeper. Because he would tell me that I write the drugs that some scientists somewhere in the world they have discovered, they have created, and he had huge respect and I mean always in awe of the people working behind the scene, who are developing those drugs.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main reasons the scientific attribute was instilled in me because of my father. But then, of course, I had the interest. And cancer, the reason was mostly because of the part of India I come from. And in overall, in India, we know that screening is not done as much, and
Yeah.
whenever detected is late. So that is how basically my drive towards cancer research and the reason for immunology or like therapeutics is all about well, that is the new era, right? I mean, even working when I did my postdoc in Mayo Clinic, also it was all about the new technology and immunotherapy, targeted therapy, then monoclonal antibody, and all of that development that really, really has been changing the scenario with the cancer treatment.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the treatment, of course, the systemic treatment, chemo and radiation is there, but those are the different high precision medicinal treatment, which is very important. And that was probably one of the reasons I wanted to pursue in that field. And it was very complex also. I always
Yeah.
like to push myself, because these are not easy subjects to deal with. And cancer itself is the most, I would say, cancer cells are the smartest thing in the world. Till now,
Yeah.
that's why we couldn't find a cure. So
Yeah.
those were different reasons why I felt that, maybe with doing research would, in whatever way I can help our community in the field of research,
Yeah,
cancer.
that's really interesting, especially with the background that you've come from. That really does make sense, to why you would, pursue cancer research. And throughout your journey, you've worked at multiple places, like the Mayo Clinic for one. How did that experience shape your understanding of cancer?
Yeah, that's a great question because see, I did my PhD from India,
Yeah.
and I did it on genetics, molecular biology, but it was all connected with cancer because that was my goal. I had to work with cancer. And my PhD was more at the signaling molecular level, how different pharmaceuticals have an effect on the chromosomes and how it can lead to cancer. But when I did my postdoc in Mayo Clinic, and I'm like really sincerely thankful to my mentors, Dr. Sandra Gandler, Dr. Pinko Mukherjee. So that was a time when I got the first-hand experience working with breast cancer and pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
And it was, I would say, Atharva, it was amazing. And because the reason is that I'll tell you a simple thing, like, coming from India, from Northeast India, I've done my PhD, and also I was at Delhi University. But when I had a simple thing that I feel that I should say, how I got into, like, when I first met my mentors, and I was very honest, and that is something I want the students to know, that
Yeah.
when you speak about your resume, it has to be actually what we have done. And
Yeah.
that kind of reflects, because the person who is interviewing, they will eventually know. So
Yeah.
when I first interviewed, and when I was asked, like, what did you do? And I always said that, I was very honest. And I said that I'm never exposed to this high-end equipments and all of this, right? But then I would know the theory of every single mechanism, the mechanistic things, the
Wow.
signaling pathway, any equipment or the technology, like if you say the high-end, how flow cytometry works and all, I knew through and through, because I wanted to go deeper, as I said, right? So that kind of helped, because what I understood was anyone can run a machine, learn it, and run it within
Yeah.
1 week, right? But to main thing is the leadership in how we execute the project, how we write the hypothesis, because here we are trying to discover new things.
Yeah.
So those are the things that Mayo Clinic has shaped me. And also I wrote grants during my postdoc, and I also had grant when I was at UNCC. So I became a cancer research professor at UNCC, and I had my own grant from Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program and NCI. So having a grant and writing a grant, those also were very important in my academic growth, which also uplifted the research scenario too.
Yeah, and I really think research is a kind of interesting field because it's something where you have to discover something new. It's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
based on some past events or something.
no,
You always have to work forward, to
yeah.
a new goal and stuff.
And there's so much troubleshooting also, Atharva, because
Yeah,
there's disappointments too. Because you
yeah,
may be writing a hypothesis, thinking that, yes, this is going to happen this way, but it may be just the other way around.
most of
And
the time.
that point, that perseverance and always thinking out of the box. So
Yeah,
that was one thing I was sure that even now I'm just like thinking, and that should come from within,
right,
so those are the instances which I felt that Mayo and UNCC, everything helped me to grow as from the research standpoint.
right. And for students who are maybe not familiar, how would you explain what cancer immunology research actually involves? Could you take me to maybe not your day to day, but what a typically you would do in this kind of field?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I would keep it very simple, because immunology is something where it's very detail oriented. So what
Yeah.
happens is, in simple words, like when we have an infection, right? And any kind of infection, if you think of COVID or any other thing, our body reacts. We know that we are having an external source which is infecting us, and our immune system should react. But what happens with the cancer scenario is a silent growth. So the manifestation, the clinical symptoms show up when it's already become like it's been quite some time, because our immune system doesn't respond, because it's our own body cells, and we also have immune checkpoints, which what happens is when the tumors are growing, the cancer cells, they hijack the immune checkpoints.
Yeah.
So that is something which is very critical to know, and that's why the T cells, which are our immune cells, they are not fighting against those cancer cells.
Right.
So in immunology, what happens is we try to work with our immune system so that our immune system can actually recognize the tumor cells. And for that, we have the immune checkpoint inhibitors. So
Right.
the different immune checkpoints are like PD-1, then CTLA-4. So we have these inhibitors so that the tumor cells, what they do is they have certain proteins which are going to go and bind to the checkpoint inhibitors and like stop them from the signaling, so that the immune cells don't respond. But if we are having that inhibitor, is going to block that, and we want that the T cells will respond. The
Yeah.
other different ways we do also are the CAR T cells, like chimeric antigen receptor T cells, which are all adaptive T cell therapy. Then we also have tumor infiltrating T cells. So there are different mechanisms are there, Atharva, like by which is we are trying to play with the tumor cells. We are trying to bring, and also the different mechanisms now that we do is we kind of bring, like it's very personalized. We will
Right.
use the tumor cells of the patients. We will grow it, we will genetically engineer it. We'll make it in a chimeric situation and then infuse it back so that, we know that we are like the particular type of tumors, it kind of becomes very effective in the treatment process. So
Right.
that is something that all with the immunology kind of we try to work around in simple words.
And so mostly does all of this, happen in a lab or does it
Yeah, in
happen
the lab.
in the
In the
lab?
lab, in the lab, but when you're working with the patients, with the immune cells, it's more like a collaborative effect with the
Right.
hospital system and the department.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, based on what you've told me, I've like noticed some keywords that I've been learning in AP Bio. I haven't really
Mhm.
been able to understand all about the immunology, but I've definitely seen some connection
Yes, yes.
because I
No,
think
and
I've
it's
really
so
scratched the
interesting.
surface.
Yeah, and it's very like immunology is a subject which is we really need to be in depth about it.
Yeah,
It's very interesting. Everything is connected finally to our immune system, our DNA, the molecular signaling pathway. So
yeah,
someone who wants to be in this field has to be really, really passionate about understanding the all the pathway. It's like intertwined. So what
yeah,
it's nothing you cannot differentiate one thing to another. Everything is
yeah.
kind of connected.
Yeah, it's mostly of the whole body and stuff, it's not
Yeah.
just one specific part
No,
kind of thing.
no, absolutely.
And also, you've mentioned how you focus on breast and pancreatic cancer. What would you say makes these cancers particularly challenging to treat?
Yeah, so I would say breast cancer, Atharva, it's treatable and it can be cured.
Right.
Only thing is that we have to detect early. So that is the reason why we always advocate for screening. Screening means that when we do not have issues, we are still checking. So we know the screening protocol from Breast Cancer Hub. We have made breast of exam, reminder app in 27
Mhm.
languages, first time for all genders. So these are the different ways that I would say that breast cancer becomes devastating when we do not screen, and if the tumor it invades the surrounding tissues and then through the lymphatic system it spreads to the distant organ, so that it advances from stage 0 to stage 4.
Yeah.
At stage 4 means when the tumor from the breast to the distant organ, and at that point it's difficult to cure the patient.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true that the more earlier we catch the cancer, it is easier to treat, because there are different and mostly now what we do, Atharva, is that there are different like when we think of breast cancer, right, we cannot think of it as a blanket treatment because
Right.
there are so many variables that comes into picture. We have the receptor status, the hormone receptor status, the HER2, which is another protein, that status. If both like estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and HER2 are absent, we call it as triple negative breast cancer, which is very difficult. There's no targeted therapy for triple negative breast cancer, and that is the type of cancer which is very challenging.
Right.
And because the protocol sometimes says that we have to do chemo first based on the stage of the tumor, the grade of the tumor. Chemo first, then we shrink the tumor, do the surgery, then we have a targeted therapy. But then with triple negative, we don't have the targeted therapy, so it becomes
Mhm.
challenging, and that's why early detection is the key. But when we detect early, it is totally curable. On
Okay.
the contrary, with the pancreatic cancer, it's very difficult to cure. And I have worked so much with pancreatic cancer, and I have seen the aggressiveness, and the reason because there are certain, like, from epithelial to mesenchymal transition of the cells. But then most importantly, the reason it is challenging with pancreatic cancer is by the time it's detected, it is already late because it is the symptom, it is very asymptomatic.
Yeah.
And also when we are trying to treat the tumor at that time, so pancreatic cancer, what happens is the tumor, it forms like a shield, like it has a lot of scar tissues and fibrosis. So the chemo doesn't have that effect. And also it is the area where the pancreas is. It's very difficult to surgically remove everything. And
Right.
the other thing is, usually with the pancreatic cancer, I have worked with KRAS mutation. So there's a type of mutation called KRAS mutation, and it's very difficult to target those kind of mutation which drives the pancreatic cancer. So
Right.
those are the challenges we face, and that's why there's so much research that is undergoing with the pancreatic cancer. And of course, and because with breast cancer it is so common, one
Yeah.
out of eight women can get. Men get breast cancer too. With the transgender community also, we are seeing more with the trans women because of all the hormones they are taking
Yeah.
and everything. So yeah, so it's very critical situation currently, and that's why I always say that it's our body. We have to understand if we are
Yeah.
undergoing any changes. We have to advocate for our own body.
And this is a field that is much different than becoming a doctor, So if example becoming a doctor, it's a systematic process. You go to college, then go into med school and then fellowship and residency. How would you say the pathway is for becoming a researcher like this? Is it the same pathway or is it a little bit different?
No, it's a little bit different. So how we did it, like I did my undergrad in India. I
Okay.
did my undergrad in the biosciences. Of course, I had chemistry also. Then
Yeah.
I did my master's in life sciences, which had all the subjects like immunology, then biochemistry, like molecular biology, cellular, like everything,
Yeah.
whatever is needed, like environmental science. So it was more like at the master's. So I finished my master's. Then I also did, as I was a research scholar at Delhi University. After that, I enrolled for PhD program. So
Okay.
that was another 5 years. But
Yeah.
here in the US, actually, like even you have a 4 year degree. After that, you
Right.
can directly enroll. But in
Okay.
India, we had to do the masters, and then if you wanted to do MPhil or after masters, I did the PhD. But then I came here, and just like similarly, how just MBBS in India is not enough. You have to do MD here. You come out as an MD when you are in the system. But similarly, just only PhD is, I feel like, many people do that. They do PhD and then they start working. But if you
Yeah.
want to be in academics, if you want to be a hardcore researcher, then doing a postdoc is very important. So that
Okay.
postdoctoral fellowship is very, like that's where like your future, I feel, is going to shape like what would be your PhD subject plus your postdoc. Like I always, of course, I knew what I was doing, so
Yeah.
in genetics and cancer research, and then my postdoc was more into breast cancer and pancreatic cancer, and that became my foundation.
Okay.
So that is the pathway that someone needs to take. And after that, I became a cancer research professor at UNCC. So that is another pathway where we write grants. And yes, I mean, I'll say one thing, that being it's not easy. So you
Yeah.
have to have so much patience. It's like so much hard work, and there because and also as a woman you face, because you get married, you have kids,
Yeah.
and so I had to go back to my work because when I had my first child, at that time I had my grant from as a principal investigator from Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program. So I went back to work in 6 weeks, though I had a C-section. And with my second child, within like 1.5 years I had him,
Yeah.
I went back to work in 4 weeks because I was responsible, and it was my project, being a
Yeah.
PI and having my own, research going on along with mentoring students. So it's not easy, that's what
Yeah.
I want to say. But if we have the determination, then, and if you have the interest, then I think that it's a very fulfilling profession. But you have to be very inquisitive. You have to be curious
Right.
because every day is like new discovery,
Yeah.
or and then one research can go for years, 5 years, 6 years. But parallelly, you can do many projects. But
Right.
and everything is like thinking new. How we can make the differences, and you have to be curious. You have to be, as I said, like you have to write your own protocols. You make your own protocols, which are
Yeah.
being followed by others.
Right. So, example, if, once you finish, you said undergrad and then is there more schooling after that or?
Yeah, yeah. So here, basically, you can do PhD, but in
Okay.
India, you have undergrad, then you do
Right.
masters, and after that, you enroll for PhD. But nowadays, I think things might change. 4 years undergrad might make us eligible, but during my
Mhm.
times, it wasn't like that. But here, it's undergrad, but then you have to have, you can do masters also. And
Yeah.
by doing masters, you know that whether you are still patient to do the
Yeah.
PhD program or not. So
Yeah.
I feel like, doing a master's is good because many kids drop out after the master's
Yeah.
program, or, because you have to really, really be very, the perseverance and patience is very essential with
Right.
the hardcore, such invasive research.
Right. And then so after the master's, is the job market, is it kind of working inside a lab, working with patients, is that kind of the field or?
No, it depends. Like, for example, if you're in the clinical like side, clinical trials, right? So I
Right.
was a clinical trial reviewer too. I was scientist reviewer. So I would review the proposals which for the Department of Defense, which were written by the medical healthcare system and the
Yeah.
universities also, where you have the clinical trials. If you're working with the clinical trials with the patients, but the initial stage, it depends upon which area you are in. If you're
Yeah.
in the preclinical study, then we have to work with the transgenic model, which are
Okay.
different mice models, because you cannot do an experiment directly in a human,
Yeah.
right? You have to do the preclinical study. So there will be like transgenic models and to engineered models that we have to create. So
Yeah.
from starting from that, then you run your experiments, then you go from like phase one, from bench to phase one, phase two, phase three, and then it will be with human. So, I mean, always like phase one, phase two, phase three, when you're doing it with the human trials at that time, and when you are in the advanced phase, then we have
Right.
to see the long-term usage. So
Yeah.
it depends upon which branch of research you are in, so that whether your interface will be with the patients, or it can be like mine was both the lab and the patients. So kind
Right.
of like it can be a margin also. Like it depends upon your research project, who
Yeah.
your mentor is, or which lab you are getting into. And if after masters also, I had students who just directly joined the pharmaceuticals, or they joined, the vaccine department,
Yeah.
all the healthcare companies like Bristol, like Pfizer, Novartis. So all of that are run by scientists, right? So they can directly do that. But my advice would be, if you're really wanting to go in that direction, it's
Yeah.
good to have a PhD.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. That's really a very diverse, there's many options. It's not
Oh,
just
very
one single
no,
pathway.
no. And then there's so many like quality assurance also, like a lot
Yeah.
of times, no clinical trials, but the quality assurance. And then there are certain many students of mine, they have also gone into like biosafety. Like for example, I'm also like for UNCC, I'm in the biosafety committee. Like I'm doing honorary for them now for the last because they requested me to join their board of biosafety. That means the protocols that the professors or the doctor, like all the
Yeah.
doctors, or either they're professors, researchers, or physicians, they are writing. So we have to make sure that they're following biosafety protocols or not. And that itself is a big research because we have to read every protocol and understand what they're doing, whether they're working with virus, with bacteria, what is the safety, or, it's like huge. So that is
Yeah.
another direction that students can go, because that's a great career too, because no
Right.
experiments can run unless we have the ethics committee
Most
approval, unless we
definitely.
have the biosafety approval. So those are the things, as a researcher, we all have to follow different protocols, which, I mean, fortunately, like physicians don't have to go through any of
Yeah.
that hassles. Yeah.
Yeah. And now kind of shifting from your research to what you're doing outside the lab, what would you say inspired you to start Breast Cancer Hub? It's such an amazing organization that you've started. And what gap were you hoping to address?
Yeah, so honestly, Atharva, when I was doing all of that, I had no thoughts of starting a nonprofit or giving away my everything. I was at the peak of my career, like
Most
whatever a
definitely.
scientist would want. And I had my discoveries. I discovered the correlation between arthritis and breast cancer with the full molecular mechanism. We discovered it, and in our lab, and that got press release in 2012 from American Association of Cancer Research. So it was like a global achievement and everything.
Yeah.
But what happened was, it was very not only personal, it was more like, as I said, remember, like when I was 12, my friend's mom passed away. And then when I would present my work, my research work in different forums, like for example, I was in India and presenting my work, and I would still meet the oncologist telling me how their patients are detected late. They come in such advanced stage. Just simple solution could have saved their lives, right? I mean, just because of taboo, because of ignorance, and then because of like the late detection. Why would that happen? Because
Yeah.
women do not speak about their breast health because of the taboo, shyness, ignorance, lack of awareness, then also inaccessibility to healthcare facilities, proper diagnosis and treatment management, right? But then here again, as I said, I was a reviewer at the study section. I would go to Washington, D.C. I would meet patients from US who would tell me that even male breast cancer, that they were diagnosed at stage 4 because mammograms, which is a gold standard of breast cancer screening, missed their tumors because of dense breast. So it was not a one day thing. And I had students
Yeah.
from Middle Eastern countries, I had students from Hispanic community, and different cultures, ethnicities, from the Black community, and of course from the Indian community. And the scenario was kind of the same. And I felt that, we could have easily saved them
Yeah.
by just following simple protocol. And I always spoke about it with my students, and I was also doing, and I took the decision in 2017 when I was doing my MBA from Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management. I did my MBA as an executive MBA. So I would go over the weekend in Chicago, and I would do the classes and come back. So in 2017, during my MBA program, one of the professors, he's Professor Uzi, and everyone knows him in Kellogg. And so Professor Uzi would ask the full cohort like to write about our dream project. And I wrote that, I really want to, because I knew that this would bridge the gap, simple solutions, grassroots solution. We have to go to the community. Community will not come to us.
Yeah.
And I got huge support from my cohort, like they had to put the sticker, and mine was like overwhelming support, and it boosted my impetus too. And I came back to Charlotte, and I told my husband I really need to do this, and he said, yeah, do it, balance both. And I had small kids and grants and research and mentoring PhD students and all of that, MD students. And then I was like, no, it was not possible. And I
Yeah.
don't know till now, Atharva, what happened. It was like a calling. And I felt that, if I don't do this now, if I think of my career, which was going so good, but I felt that, I mean, I had to give it up because
Yeah.
it was like instantaneous. And then I wrote the resignation letter. And then my husband was like, call your father. What are you doing? And when I called my dad, and he was still alive at that time, 2017. So I told him that I want to do this and I have to come to the community. Community will not come to us and
Yeah.
create simple solutions, create breast wisdom card in multiple languages and take accountability so that people
Yeah.
can come back to me. And so then, and my dad said one thing, do you know that if you're starting a non-profit means it has to be non-profit? So
Yeah.
I said, yes, I know. So I had to shed, most importantly, I had to shed my ego because I became financially when I did everything on scholarship. No one had to worry about my,
Yeah.
anything. So I shed my ego. I became dependent, and I gave whatever I had savings or not savings. I would say whatever I put everything on the organization, and that was the inception of Breast Cancer Hub. And it built one. So it's a myth kind of thing that we do just awareness. We take care end to end. We go
Yeah.
door to door. We do screening. We bring the patients to the hospital. We provide the aid. So everything, and we work with different cancers. So
Yeah.
by doing this, I think more than 300,000, we have kind of attended to, and more than 5,000 lives we have saved. So we work in US, Africa, India, and globally through a hybrid model. So I do the treatment guidance and everything. Yeah.
That's really
So
great to hear. Yeah.
and if I didn't have the foundation of my breast cancer or this, like because it became the what happened, Atharva, is that like it became much. The foundation is a STEM organization,
Yeah.
and it became so scientific and strong foundation because of my background. So that is, I think that is a boost that I
Yeah.
had.
One final question, what advice would you give to students? There are always, kids in this medical pathway, they're always, thinking about whether they should go in healthcare or the research field. What is one advice you could give to students in this boat?
I would say that research is also in healthcare because finally, whatever we are discovering and inventing and medicines we are making, it's
Yeah.
all going for the healthcare system, right? So it's a same ecosystem, but I would say one thing that follow your heart.
Right.
That's it. Because do not go in the direction because your parents are suggesting that.
Yeah.
Because even if you're a physician, you have to have that empathy, you have to have that interest, which field. If you want to become a researcher, it needs a lot of hard work, but it is very meaningful because and it's very satisfying because
Right.
as a researcher we get to publish our own papers, our own work,
Yeah.
which are like lifelong. It stays, it's on PubMed, it's everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And those things are different. These are the differentiating factors from a clinician, from a physician, then a researcher.
Yeah.
But then now I would say that even now with Breast Cancer Hub, I'm I mean I'm doing research. It's that grassroots epidemiology study, clinical data analysis. Our research got Spotlight Award in San Antonio Breast Cancer
Okay.
Symposium. So everything is interconnected. We cannot
Yeah.
separate out. But students, if they're interested in research, it's not just about sitting in the lab. The research will be like there's diversified fields because it
Yeah.
can be in biomed engineering, it can be in cancer research, but cancer research also is a broad system.
Yeah.
There's so many areas within cancer research that students can work on. They can work on nanoparticles, they can work on immunotherapy of different ways, targeted therapy, anything and everything. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it has to be their own interest.
Right.
Because, and then one more thing I want to say, like, never get disappointed. If I've seen many students, they have this aim that I want to become this. And if that doesn't work out, please, because the mental health is the most important thing,
Yeah.
but try to give your best because I always feel that something else was meant to happen to this kid, and that's the reason why this didn't happen. So just
Right.
imagine my life, right? Did I ever think I'll do breast cancer hub,
Yeah.
like give up everything what I had and go
Yeah.
for do everything like 100% free service, and now I don't get publications on high impact factor journals
Yeah.
or anything. I don't have but what I get is satisfaction.
Yeah.
So, and the fulfillment. So I think end of the day, it's a satisfaction that matters, what the student
Yeah.
wants.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopa. This has been really insightful. I think this has given us a really good look into, both the research side and also the other, which is the most important, the real world impact, on how it, affects the communities in US, in other countries, India as well. So thank you so much again for taking the time to talk with me. And for everyone watching, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, Atharva, for inviting me. Bye. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.